Welcome to Thomistic Womanhood. In today's video, we are going to do the flip side of a previous video, and we're going to talk about what does a man bring to the table. You know, a lot of us women, we really want a man in our life, but have you ever sat down and really thought why? Like, what are those universal qualities that make men so appealing and make us want one in our life so much? So in today's video, we're going to get into that. Welcome to Thomistic Womanhood. Happy Thomistic Tuesday, or whenever you're watching this. In today's video, we are going to talk about what does a man bring to the table. As women, I think it's very important for us to identify for ourselves why we want a man. You know, there has been a big debate, ever since the 60s and feminism, there has been the question, does a woman need a man? And Gloria and I'm very famously said, a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. And I disagree with that. I think there's bike trails in the aquarium, but that's just my opinion. However, for those of you that do feel that you're called to the married state, I made a video, I don't know where we can pop it up, one of these sides. I made a video previous where I talked about the 3 states of life, the 3 kind of lifestyles you can have. This is deeper than just a career or education, but one of those lifestyles is being married. And so if you feel that you're one of the women, and the majority of women are, like 2/3 of people are called to the married state. If you're the kind of woman who's like, yeah, I really like men, I like children, then, and you feel you're called to the married state, this is going to be an important video because it'll help you identify what do you really want out of a man? Why are you seeking a man? So these are the 6 things that I feel are, the universal compelling things that men have that we women want and that make us attracted to them, kind of on like a very primal, I want to say like in a compelling way. If you've ever liked a guy so much, you're like, man, there's just something about him, like you can't let go, you really feel that pull. And it's because he probably had a few of these qualities. And the more of these qualities men have, then the more attractive they're going to be. So the first one is financial security. This is where he's got a good job. Some women take it to an extreme and they really want like a wealthy guy, but I would say financially secure. If a guy's got his career established, he's bringing in some money, he can support a family at whatever standard of living you're used to and you're comfortable with, then that is something very compelling about men. They don't approach careers the way we do. They're very linear about it. They set out to do something and they just go to work day in and day out. Us women are a little more fluid. If you look at the careers of women, despite all the feminism and everything that we've had since the 60s, if you look at the US labor statistics, the majority of I think the top 4 occupations that women are doing in, I looked at last year's, I believe it was 2019, the top 4 were teacher, nurse, secretary, and then I think it was like customer service rep. These are all very traditionally feminine jobs, which blew my mind. I was like so shocked when I saw that, because with the way our media is and everything, I thought it would have been a little more, I guess, broken up, but it's not. And it's because us women, we go for jobs that maybe allow part-time work, or they're a little flexible, or maybe they're seasonal, or we'll work for maybe a few years, maybe a decade, then we take time off to take care of kids. And so our careers are a little more fluid, they kind of go up and down, whereas men's are very linear. And because they're linear, they're able to, have a lot of earning potential. And that is something we value about men, because deep down, on a very biological level, primal level, we know that men will provide for us while we have their babies. Men will provide for their offspring and the mother of their children. And that's why on a kind of a deep instinctive level, we seek out men that have resources. We have some that have some sort of, nowadays, our economy runs on money and finances. And so that's the resource we seek out. But if we were in a barter economy, back in the medieval times when it was like they had land, land was the thing. Well, if a guy had a lot of land, or back in the 1800s, 40 acres and a mule, when men have these resources, we naturally gravitate to that, on an instinctive level. That's the first one. The next one, protection, especially like physical protection. This is men who, they can shoot guns, they can fight, they know how to protect you. If you're really afraid of identity theft and like this guy's a hacker and he knows how to do that, ooh, you're gonna feel safe, And so again, like I said in the previous video, each one of these are like a pass, to like some high security facility. If the guy shows us, boom, right this way, sir, he's in, So again, protection, that can be, a big pass, especially if you had maybe a turbulent childhood and maybe you were very aware of, the dangerous people in the world. Because nowadays it's not really wild animals that we have to worry about, it's like wild people. There are still like murderers, rapists, things like that. So if you've got a man that like knows how to fight, he knows weapons, dude, that's going to be very attractive. That's going to be very compelling. So physical protection. And then the next one, guidance. This, I would almost say this is kind of a form of protection, but I would say it may be a non-physical way, but guidance, he's a guy who's maybe a little street smart. He knows how the world works. And, he can kind of guide you. And, if you've got a problem, like let's say you have a student loan and, the creditors are hounding you and you're just so stressed out, you're like overwhelmed and at your wit's end. If you can sit there and like cry out the story to him and he can sit there and be like, okay, well, have you tried calling such and such? Or have you tried, or, they can't do that. Yeah, they're bullying you. No, they can't do that. And you're like, really? Oh, if he can kind of guide you and give you like life advice or career advice, if he's got some kind of expertise in life that he can kind of help you with, or he's the kind of guy that is willing to listen to your problems and kind of help you sort out all the emotional angst, because I think as women, we can get very overwhelmed with a problem and our feelings can just be like so all over the place that sometimes it helps to tell a man, because a man can kind of cut through the drama and see what's really essential, and he can kind of redirect your focus back on that. And that is really, really helpful and really valuable. So if a man has the ability to do that, to kind of help give some guidance, that's really compelling. That's really valuable. The next thing, companionship. We women, we want someone to grow old with, we want a man who's going to emotionally connect with us. If he's closing his heart off and he's not letting you in, all of us women, we instinctively don't want that in a relationship. We want there to be kind of that emotional meeting of the minds where we get to see his inner world and we can kind of talk about ours a little bit and kind of have that, kind of like that verbal and emotional intimacy there. And that companionship is really important, especially when you become an old woman, your 50s and 60s, to have a man there that you live with, you spend time with, somebody who cares how your day went, or just somebody, if you had something funny happen. I think, forget who it was, but I think some writer said something to the effect of like, there's nothing sadder in the world than to have no one, to find a funny joke and have no one to tell it to. This is kind of the gist of what they were saying. And it's true. You want someone to where if something good happens, you can tell them about it. If you find a funny joke, there's someone to tell it to. You're not alone in the world. That's really valuable. Really value that in men. So that companionship, that emotional closeness, that's something that we really find compelling. The next one, paternity. And again, this is basically fertility and sexuality kind of rolled into one. But it's the way us women usually think about it. With men, there's a bit of a split. They are very focused on like sex, and they don't always necessarily think of the fertility and the childbearing aspect. They're just like, hey, I just want to have a good time. Like real talk. But with us women, we're a little more holistic. If we're thinking like, well, this guy's really hot, maybe we can have kids together. That's kind of where our mind goes automatically. Now, again, it's a little different. Our society, I feel, has kind of conditioned women to split the two, and we're kind of taught that like being a slut is empowering. And then, there can be some separation here. And so women aren't always thinking of, paternity when they think of sex. But in general, I would say women, at our instinctive level, when we want to sleep with a guy, it's more than that. We want to have his kids, we want to be the mother of his children. We want to be two in one flesh, And so that is why for a man, if he's capable of getting you pregnant, it's not just like, is he hot? Do I want to sleep with him? The sexuality, but it's like, can he get me pregnant? Can we have kids together? Is that paternity possible? That's something really compelling, and that's what we want in a man. So that is something there. And then the final one is masculinity. Just as we talked about the effects that, I keep doing my hair, man. Just as we talked about the effect of femininity on a man and that soothing and that calming presence, with women, masculinity kind of does that for us too. If you've got someone who's like strong and capable, and he's loyal, and he cares about you and he's going to stick around, someone in the world that you can lean on, it's a compelling for us because it helps us feel safe. It kind of lowers our anxiety. In a way, it helps us kind of calm down and be soothed. And I think also it helps us be free to be joyful. I really think that it kind of unlocks our joyfulness. I have a friend who, because I knew her for years before she got married, and she was a really nice person, like I liked her, but she was just kind of serious, she just didn't really, she wasn't mean and she wasn't like shy. She was just kind of a very serious, kind of deadpan woman. And that was just how she was. Well, she then met the guy who became her husband. And as they were dating, I saw such a change in her. She was a little more perky. She was a little happier. She would kind of laugh at jokes a little longer and louder. There was a certain vibrancy that came back to her. And I really think it was because of, the man in her life. When we women, when we have a guy in our lives that we know loves us and we can rely on, I really think that it allows us to relax and be happy again. So with men, it kind of soothes them and helps them kind of calm down. But I feel like for us women, it kind of helps us relax and be joyful and perk up again. Because life can be very hard. It can be very scary and uncertain. And I think a lot of us, the older you get, or the more of life you've been exposed to, as women, we can kind of lose our like girlish joyfulness, our playfulness. Because life is hard. We often have to go to jobs, we often have to pay bills, we have to do very serious, responsible, high pressure things, and that can sometimes kind of crush the life and the joy out of us a little bit. And so when you have a man in your life, it's almost like you can let your hair down and kind of relax and like be happy again, because you know that there's someone to fall back on. When you know it's just you, that's a very serious prospect, and that's kind of a scary I can't talk today. It's a scary prospect. But when you know there's a man there that you can rely on, even if you're in a relationship where you guys are both working, you're both bringing in money, even still, you have that redundancy, you have like a backup income, and it takes a huge burden off your shoulders. And so I do feel that like that masculinity, because men look at things differently, they're more strategic than us. They can notice weak points better than us, and so they're better at, protecting against them. Us women can often just kind of float through life, and, a lot of times somebody will put one over on us and like we didn't even think of it, because we're women, like we're kind of, I don't want to sound like too sexist, but like on a biological level, like we're kind of designed to like raise kids and be exploited by children, like we have to basically devote our lives to taking care of a little newborn for whatever it like cries about. And so we're not as like self-remembering, as men are, I think. And I know self-remembering isn't really a word, but I'm making it a word because that's kind of what I'm getting at. But again, when you have that masculine presence in your life and that masculine point of view, it can help you realize things that you didn't realize before, and it helps you look at life differently. And again, I really do think that it unlocks a certain joy in us, as long as you've got a good, healthy man. There are some relationships where the guy's nothing but trouble and he's drama and you never know where it's going to go with him or whether he really loves you or not, or like where is this thing heading. And then yeah, it unlocks anything but joy. But I mean, I'm assuming that, you know, if you've got a good, normal, healthy man who loves you and he's loyal to you and you trust him, then yeah, that can unlock a lot of joy. And so that masculinity is really important, you know, that strength and that, you know, that perspective and the strength and stuff, you know, knowing that, oh, you don't have to take care of this person, you can kind of relax and let him take care of you. Like, wow, what a nice concept. Yeah, those are the things that I think are compelling about men. And again, not every guy is going to be like amazing at every one of these. Like, you know, maybe some men, you know, take the priests for example. You know, I'm Catholic. I've had priests that are very, you know, they're very good at like guiding you through life if you have a problem, especially as like I've often had to move away from my family, and so I didn't really have anybody to like give life advice, and sometimes I would like tell a priest a problem and like get advice. Well, they don't have paternity, you know, I'm not going to have kids with this priest, you know, so they don't have everything on here, but they have the masculinity, they have the guidance, you know, and that can be important to have in your life. And again, there are other men who, you know, maybe they have a bunch of these things, but they lost their job, so they don't have financial security at that moment, you know. There's still something valuable, you know, especially if you know that he's good at, you know, you have that companionship and he's got guidance, you know, he's smart enough to where you know he can get another job, you know. So again, these, in my opinion, these are the things, 6 things that I think are compelling about men. And I really think that as women, when we have an instinctive desire to get a man, that I think really what's underneath it is these 6 things. We want a man that embodies these 6 things, and then we feel happy and we feel like we have what we need in life. And so that's that. Now, again, just as like I mentioned with the video about what women bring to the table, I do want to also highlight that we all kind of have our type. We have a different like flavor of man that we like. Maybe we like the geeks, you know, some of us like the guys that are really nerdy. Others we like I said last time, the more preppy guy, you know, maybe he's really into work and he wears a lot of business suits, you know, and he's not really into like computers, but he's really into like business and he's always on the phone, like doing a deal or something. You know, maybe that's your kind of guy. Or maybe you really like the cowboys, you know, maybe you like those rural guys that, you know, they like to hunt and fish and, you know, that's your type, you know. Again, we all kind of have our type of man, the certain superficial, accidental qualities that we find appealing in a certain kind of guy. However, at its heart, at a deeper level, at a more universal level, regardless of whether he's a cowboy or a firefighter or a businessman, like whatever type of guy he is, if he has these underlying 6 things, I really do think that like on a primal level, we're going to be really drawn to him. So again, those are my thoughts. If you have any comments or questions, leave a comment below. I always check my comments and I always try to get back to you. It might not be right away within 24 hours, but I always try to answer my comments. And yeah, if this is content you like, feel free to subscribe, hit the bell for a notification, and I'll see you next time.